The Many of Origins of Scootaloo by Defender22. Chapter 12. Twilight Sparkle. Take me on, take on me, I'll be gone. Twilight could not get the song out of her head. It was her own fault, trusting Pinkie to use whatever strange Pinkie magic she had allowed her to warp about to get them both home. The moment she had been pulled into the potted plant, Twilight found herself in a strange world where her and her friend looked like they were pencil sketches. They had been chased through an empty hallway by ponies in black outfits and helmets. All the while, the song that currently was buzzing through Twilight's brain cells played in her head. Once they had reappeared in the library, Twilight had shooed her friend away and went about getting ready for bed. The long day had utterly exhausted her, and Twilight was so happy to find the note Spike had left, stating he was spending night in Rarity's place. Finally, a night all to myself. No crazy theories. No insane stories about Scootaloo. No talk about me and Princess Luna or brownies or tables. Just sleep! By Celestia, you are so boring. Well, me and apparently my reflection, which has suddenly become sentient. So I thought, as he slowly turned toward the mirror. Mirror Twilight looked at her in disgust, rolling her eyes. Jeez, we look so boring. Would it kill you to put on some makeup? If not for you, then at least for my sake. The image in the mirror rippled. Mirror Twilight altering herself to be less boring. Twilight gasped at her doppelganger's transformation, her mind suddenly doing loop-de-loops. Mirror Twilight's mane and tail were now in cornrows, each braid capped with a glittery bead. She had slathering on makeup till she looked like a Manhattan wild filly. She wore gaudy golden shoes, and earrings in the shape of her cutie mark dangled from her ears. Topping the entire look was a look of utter disdain that graced her features. What? You actually think that looks good? To Tyrus, yes, Mirror Twilight said, using her magic to pull out a cigarette. Even her voice had changed, dropping an octave and losing all sense of proper dictation. All the stallions love it when we dress like this. I have never dressed like that! Mirror Twilight laughed. Oh, Twilight, Twilight, Twilight. Did Celestia get you good? What are you talking about? Twilight snapped her reflection. Wait, why am I arguing with you? You aren't real. You're not scientifically possible. You sure about that? The Mirror Twilight asked. Who is to say who is real and what isn't real? You did think time travel was real, and now you know better. Maybe I spent way too much time watching you ruin our life that I gained sentience just to slap some sense into you. Mirror Twilight licked her lips loosely. Or maybe you're just crazy. Could be both, or neither. Let's assume you are real, Twilight said darkly, trying not to think about the prospect. You might be nuts. Why would my reflection look so beautiful, gorgeous, slutty? Mirror Twilight glanced looking. So I thank you. I was going for slutty, but you could never tell if you managed to pull it off, especially since I can't exactly look in the mirror since, duh, I am a mirror. Still haven't answered my question, Twilight grunted. Mirror Twilight cackled. Oh, come off it, nerdy bird. I can't believe Celestia managed to rally your brain so much that you don't remember the real you. I am the real me. But you ain't, Twi. You ain't, Mirror Twilight marked. I am. Pony feathers! Mirror Twilight said sarcastically, placing a hoof on her chest. Did you kiss your dictionary with that mouth? You leave Mr. Dictionary out of this! Please, he isn't that special. You do know that thine is a word, right? It's rather old and not used often. Twilight turned from her reflection, huffing in annoyance. Huh, we are done here. You think it'll be that easy? Mirror Twilight said, now talking to her from Twilight's reflection in the window. I'm not going away that easily. Not after finally getting free. Twilight tried to turn away, but found no matter which direction she turned, her reflection was already there. Finally, she shut her eyes, deciding she didn't need to see the other her. She would disappear. No, I won't, Mirror Twilight taunted just off to her left. Come on, Bookworm. Just listen to what I have to say. Then I'll leave you be. Scout's honor. I was never a scout. Smarter than you look, Twi. Smarter than you look. Mirror Twilight sighed, sitting down on her haunches. Come on. You know you want to hear what I have to say. It's about Scootaloo. What? I've got your attention. You know, some ponies are starting to get the wrong idea if you keep stalking that filly. It isn't like... Forget it. Just tell me your stupid theory about Scootaloo, then leave me alone. It isn't a theory, and it isn't stupid, Twi. It's all true. Mirror Twilight tilted her head to the side. Do you know who Scootaloo is? No, Twilight admitted. She's you. Pull the other one! Mirror Twilight laughed. Oh, you are getting a bit tasty. I love it. Clanking her hoof against the glass, Mirror Twilight continued. Let me paint you a picture, Twilight, of your past. Your real past. You don't remember what you were like when you were a teenager, do you? I was Celestia's student. I was learning how to perform spells, and she was grooming me for a life in court. Wrong! Mirror Twilight shouted. Let me remind you who you really were, before Celestia interfered. Years ago. Princess Celestia knocked on her faithful student's door, concerned. She had been waiting for nearly an hour for Twilight to meet her in the library, and when she hadn't shown the princess, she had become concerned. Twilight had always been a model student, ever punctual and willing to go to the extra mile just to make her mentor proud. For her to miss a study period was simply unheard of, and Celestia feared her precious little Twilight might have come down with, Excuse me, pardon me. A stocky stallion grunted as he threw open the door, staggering past the startled Princess Celestia. The princess shook off her surprise and used a blast of magic to pin to the stallion wall. Whoa! You want a piece of bedrocker? Who are you, and what are you doing in my student's room? Celestia nearly snarled. Answer me now, or... Oh, come on now, Tia. Lay off, bedrocker. Celestia turned, the stallion forgotten as the princess stared at her student. Twilight's mane had been cut into a mohawk, and body piercings littered her body. Her room looked like a liquor store had exploded, and the smell of cigarettes, cheap booze, and sex clung to everything, including the lavender unicorn that was loosely rubbing her flank. After all, I did give him quite a hard night. Twilight called from the bed. Twilight, what? Keep your mouth open, and I'll shove something in it. Or let Bedrocker do the shoving. He's good at that, among other things. Celestia felt her knees buckle at the sight of her student. What had happened to the sweet little filly she had talked to just hours ago? Spike! Spike! Twilight howled, rolling off the bed with a thud. Oh, the room is spinning. Spike! Bring me my medicine! Spike entered, and Celestia choked back the scream that threatened to burst from her lips. The baby dragon was covered in tattoos, and his bloodshot eyes made it appear he hadn't slept in weeks. Twilight brought a bottle of booze, and the unicorn used him as a bottle opener, shoving the cap in his mouth and sucking him up. She then used the magic to pop the bottle in her mouth, which she suckled like a baby. Help me! I would never act like that! Ah, but you did, Twi, you did. Mirror Twilight mocked. You've just forgotten. Thanks to Celestia. What are you talking about? Why do you keep saying that? Mirror Twilight sighed in disgust. You really are dense, do you know that? Did no one ever explain to you unicorn puberty? You mean how every month No! Not that! Mirror Twilight complained. All ponies with a horn, be they unicorns or alicorns, go through a wild child phase during their teens. Their magic simply becomes too much for them and their egos go into overdrive. They become reckless creatures obsessed with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Rock and roll? Really? Hey, I didn't come up with this stuff. I'm just the messenger, Twilight complained. Anyway, think of it as like how most teenagers are, only boosted to 1,000%. Twilight frowned. If this happens all the time, why have I heard about it or read about it? No Tony talks about it because it's embarrassing. You think Prince Blueblood wants ponies to know he went a few years wearing folk roller and listening to speed metal? All the unicorns just kept quiet about it. Heck, most of the time it isn't even that big of a deal. Their strength of their ego is related to one's magic. Take our brother Shiny. He hardly changed at all. Just got a bit more crazy and focused a bit more sex as most stallions do. First, ew. Second, you honestly think my brother was like that? Shining Armor is a true gentle cult. It would never be obsessed with sex. Shining Armor stood on top of Canterlot Castle, staring at the city. After Twilight left, he and Cadence, well, the things his wife had done. Sometimes something beautiful happens in this world. Shiny didn't know how to express himself, so he just had to sing, I just had sex, and it felt so good. A man let me put my junk inside of her. I just had sex, and I'll never go back to having sex is a thing of the past. Celestia looked up from her balcony, frowning before she turned to her sister. Should we tell Cadence about this? Luna rolled her eyes. Who do you think is singing backup for him? Princess Cadence in Shining Armor. We just had sex, and our dreams come true. If you just had sex in the last 30 minutes, then you're qualified to sing with us. Celestia sighed. Utterly disgraceful. Wait, why is that gray Pegasus up there? And now, Princess Cadence, Shining Armor, Derpy, Dr. Who's, Titles, Havoc the Wonderbolts, Gilda, and Trixie! We just had sex, and it felt so good! A man let Sally put her junk inside of her! We just had sex, and we'll never go back! To having sex is a thing of the past! Yeah, he's a saint, Mirror Twilight said drolly. None of this makes any sense, and I don't see the point to this silliness. Point is, Twilight, an increased sex drive and a need to rebel is perfectly fine if you're a regular unicorn. The problems arise when you're as powerful as we are. We go into overdrive? Twilight questioned. Ding, 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 ding. Mirror Twilight said sarcastically, right on the bullseye. But that isn't the worst problem. And that is what exactly? Mirror Twilight grinned. Have you ever heard the saying, once you go black, you'll never go back? Of course. It refers to the idea that once you go down to the dark side of magic, forever will it dominate your destiny. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. And suffering leads to really bad country songs. Mirror Twilight snarked. So, are you trying to claim what exactly? Nothing. I claim nothing. I'm stating for the fact that we got a taste of being bad and loved it. Would have became like Mom and bid the new Nightmare Moon. Or a stripper. Really are the same thing when you think about it. Nightmare Moon is not our mother, Twilight snapped. And we eat brownies in a perfectly normal way, Twilight said. Well, that was what was going to happen to us, until little goody Forsooth, Princess Molestia, got her hose on us. Are you sure this is necessary? Princess Twilight Velvet whispered, tears in her eyes as she watched her little filly struggle against the restraints. So Princess Celestia had let her and Nightlight, seriously, Nightlight, who hates their kid that much, know that what was happening to their little girl and promised that, with the right spells and procedures, they could bring their Twilight Sparkle back. Spells and procedures, otherwise known as occult magic and invasive surgeries. Trust me, Velvet, this is for the best. Do you know I caught your daughter jaywalking? Well, that doesn't sound too bad. Nightlight, hate that name, said. She had just burnt down an orphanage. Wait, why didn't Princess leave with the orphanage thing? How tireless if I know. Celestia gave Twilight's parents a sad smile. Trust me, this is for the best. Okay, do it. Thankfully, they were going along with their plan. Celestia walked up to Twilight, who was cursing and ranting up a storm. Don't worry, my faithful student. We've hired the best doctor a tiny bit of money could buy, Dr. Nick N. Cut. A yellow unicorn with a black mane and goatee entered, his white lab coat rustling slightly. Hi, Everypony! Hi, Dr. Nick! Everypony, even Twilight, called out happily. Nailed it, Twilight. I have been informed that you wanted a sex change operation. Celestia shook her head. No, Doctor. Twilight is suffering from unicorn puberty. Uh-oh. No wonder the Pegasus next door was so mad. Rainbow Dash will just have to live with being a mare. Don't worry. I'll have you fixed up in a jiffy. Now, you might feel a tickling sensation. Dr. Nick used his magic to grab what looked like a club covered in razor blades. when I jab this down your throat. You're joking. Only a little. That's the screwed up thing. After several hours of surgery, during which Twilight was legally dead for only 3 minutes, Dr. Nick happily declared the operation a complete success. The most fulfilling part of this all is when you'll hand me my bits. Celestia passed the cast over before walking over to her student. Twilight, can you hear me? Mirror. What are you? Mirror! Celestia nervously passed her student a mirror, who merely shrugged at her reflection. Not bad. Hey, can we go home studying? My little filly is okay, Zelda exclaimed happily, rushing over and giving Twilight a hug. Yes, Twilight Sparkle is completely cured, Princess Celestia said, before reaching down and grabbing a small orange Pegasus foal with a lock of purple hair. Now, how do you want us to kill her evil half? What? Nightlight and Velvet exclaimed. Celestia frowned, setting the foal down. I thought you understood. This operation took all the evil and dark energy that was growing in Twilight and turned it into a foal. Now all we have to do is throw it in a blender and Equestria will be okay. Nightlight shook his head. You can't be serious. We can't kill it as a foal. But you must, Celestia sighed. I once thought as you did. My evil half was removed from me so I could be goddess as a son, and she became an evil monster that nearly destroyed the world. You mean Princess Luna? What? No! Where are you, drunk? No, my evil half was called Lord Piccolo. Luckily, a monkey boy defeated him, but then he spit out an egg that became Piccolo Jr., and you know what? It's a really good story, but it gets really complicated, so we won't get into the detail. My point is, it's a bad idea. You can't seriously think that isn't little foal is evil, Nightlight said. The foal gurgled before launching herself at Dr. Nick, swallowing him whole. Do you ever get tired of being wrong all the time? It's weird. I wasn't wrong until I got married. Oh, I wonder if there's a connection. Nightlight growls. The baby birthed out a thigh bone and began to destroy lab equipment. In the end, Nightlight and Twilight Velvet couldn't kill the foal, as it was a piece of their daughter. It was like her daughter, making the child, who they named Scootaloo, their granddaughter. So, they did the only decent thing they could do. They abandoned her in the Everfree Forest and hoped for the best. Okay, now I know you're not real. How can you say that? Where's your proof? I'm not as stupid as you clearly are. Shoot! Twilight blinked, realizing her reflection had gone back to normal. That's it. No more finding out about Scootaloo. I am done. You hear me? Done! She looked to the sky, well, her roof, and shook her hoof in anger. You hear me? I am done, and there is nothing you can do to convince me otherwise! 1,000 years later. And as you know, a professor at Canterlot School for Gifted Unicorns said, those words will go down as the dumbest thing Princess Twilight would ever say. Wait, I'm confused, a little pink unicorn called out. I thought we were learning about Princess Twilight, Princess Applejack, Princess Pinkie Pie, Princess Rainbow Dash, Princess Flare Decide, and Princess Rarity. We are, the professor said kindly. The search for the origins of High Princess Scootaloo is a very important part of the history of the Immortal Bear's history. Then why do we have to learn about shining armor and Princess Kate singing about having sex? They had nothing to do with Princess Twilight or High Priestess Scootaloo. And why was the Dark Queen Derpy even mentally? Yeah, another student said. And what is with that OC title always popping up? Shut up! Chapter 13. Defender22. There were certain things that, since he had moved to Ponyville, Twilight Sparkle had come to expect to find when she had woken up. Pinkie Pie they included Pinkie Pie attempting to throw a good morning party in her bathroom. How she managed to hide in the toilet that one time, Twilight will never know. Spike dancing around in sunglasses, playing a saxophone. Though, that wasn't that annoying, except when Octavia had spent that 1 week pestering him to join her band and be her Drake friend. Rainbow Dash knocking on the door, wanting to know if the new Daring Do novel was out. Maybe I should let her know about Fluttershy, if only to see her have 5 heart attacks in a row. Mare dancing in her yard while wearing a cow costume, attempting to make the grass grow, which happened more often than one would think or hope. But Finding Derpy and Dinky Hose sitting at her table while a strange creature that looked nothing like a pony made breakfast, that did not even take her top 758 list of things to expect in the morning. 758, of course, was Queen Chrysalis sitting in her living room playing chess with a diamond dog. "Hi, Miss Twilight," Twinkie squealed.
"Morning, Twilight."
"I hope you are happy, Defender22! I just gave you nets of pure steel! I hope you're happy with this!" The strange creature that had broken into her home said, checking the eggs to make sure they were getting fluffy. A splash of milk.
"I was originally going to make us pancakes, but then I remembered that pancakes were made after a night of lovemaking and, well, no offense, but I love my girlfriends to have hands."
He paused, a smirk forming on his lips.
"Of course, if I had even tried such a thing, I'm pretty sure all the readers would have tarred and feathered me. Have you seen some of the reviews I got for the last chapter? Jeez!"
I tarred feathered some pony once," Derpy said. "And by tarring, I mean hug. And by feather, I mean join the army. And by that, I mean did not." Twilight stared at Derpy before turning to look at the creature, deciding that between it and Derpy, the creature would be the easiest to figure out. He looked nothing like a pony at all. His face was flat, topped with very short blonde hair, and neatly trimmed goatee that encircled his mouth. He was bipedal, long legs and arms that forced him to stoop as he worked on breakfast. The kitten was designed for a pony, not a being over 6 feet in height. He wore a pair of jeans and a red hoodie, which was thrown over a long brown coat that reached his casual shoes. A pair of glasses rested on his nose, and he seemed to always be pondering about something or laughing. At once, she knew who she was. "You're one of those humans Lyra was shouting about," Twilight said dumbly, looking around in fear, as if she expected Lyra to leap out any moment and try to take the stranger's hands. Little did Twilight know that Lyra was out of town, promoting her new rap album. Lyra and Bonbon go back to school. "Of course he is," Dinky said. "He's like my daddy, except he can't regenerate. It's a human, not a human who's really a Time Lord that regenerated into a Time Lord pony."
"Exactly."
The human pulled the frying pan from the stove and left it for Dinky and Derpy to divide up while he focused on making the hash browns.
"Normally, I prefer some bacon, but I have a feeling you wouldn't take kindly to me eating something you might have had a conversation with. Too bad. Breakfast isn't breakfast if I haven't made some baby animal an orphan."
"Who? How? Why?" Twilight stammered, wondering, not for the first time, if none of the events of the last few days were really happening, and she had, in fact, suffered a stroke and was now strapped to a hospital bed, hallucinating everything she was living through. No, somebody's already doing a live read of the Asylum, Twilight, and I tried to do my best not to do normal reads of something that somebody else has already done at least once. The human chuckled, finishing with the hash browns and motioning for her to join the rest of them at the table. Twilight duly did, trying to wrap her mind around these new events. Derpy was diving into the muffins the human made, while Dinky happily gobbled up her eggs.
"All good questions,"
he said, as he began to spoon some scrambled eggs onto her plate.
"The who is the most complex thing to answer. The short answer is that I have many names. Kevin, Carter, Jonathan, Gino, Arliss, Mr. Chaos. A personal favorite of mine, I must admit. But currently, I'm going by Defender2222.
"You're like me," Derpy said, swallowing a hunk of muffin. "Sometimes I'm Derpy, and sometimes I'm Ditzy, and sometimes I'm Deathstorm, Dark Queen of the Realm." Dinky nodded. "I'm always Dinky." "Defender2222, really?" Twilight asked, staring at the strange human.
"Hey, I could make fun of your name, Miss Sparkle. Sounds like you could be a laundry soap."
Defender held out his hands, like he was a Manhattan theater director setting up a scene.
"Twilight Sparkle. It gets your tough stains out."
So Dinky giggled at Defender22's joke, while Derpy looked at her bubble cutie mark and wondered if he hadn't gotten Twilight's by mistake. "Like I haven't heard that one before," she grumbled, levitating some toast over and taking a bite. If she was going to suffer through any insanity, at least she could get a meal out of it.
"As for how I got here, the magic of the fourth wall. And not because of a lack of creativity, as I know some of you believe. Yeah, you Yes, you. The one that's ready to go read Cadence Rising instead of this. Don't you dare click that link!
Cadence Rising. I wonder.
Hey! Reader!
Me?
Yeah, get back to your job!
Oh, frack. As if listening to Trixie wasn't bad enough! Twilight watched as the strange man waggled his finger at seemingly empty space. Who are you yelling at?
The readers!
Defender said with a shrug. All of his anger seemingly burned away.
You know, the people that keep giving this story favorites.
Under his breath, he muttered,
Haven't even gotten a TV show's pace yet. Lousy
readers? What do you mean, readers? What readers? Defender22 sighed.
How to explain this without shattering your sense of worth?
He tapped his chin, contemplating the riddle as he munched his hash brown. Why don't you just be blunt? Twilight asked. She had decided 3 seconds into this conversation that she must be dreaming, or having a psychological break. Considering last night she fought with her reflection, that was becoming more and more likely. It would be worthless to try to fight with logic. Better to just give in and accept defeat. Much like the Manhattan Mets did every baseball season.
Alright then. You are currently in a fanfiction that I created a few weeks ago that is being read nearly by 1,000 humans.
Twilight blinked. A what? A fanfiction, Debbie stated happily, poppy seeds from her muffin covering her lips like snowflakes. It's a story written by a fan, not attributed to a show or movie. It would be like if Rainbow Dash wrote a story about Daring Do. Defender22 thinks we're in a show.
That is crazy!
Twilight shook her head, wondering if the human was just as nuts as Lyra, and every other pony in Equestria, apparently.
Oh boy.
The human tugged on his beard.
Okay, be blunt, be blunt. You are my interpretation of a cartoon character that is part of a franchise that was originally designed to sell toys to little girls back in the 80s.
Title already did the You're a Toy story. Did I need a figure? Dinky asked.
Not yet, but your mom did.
Cool! Derby said happily. I hope it came with toy muffins. I wouldn't want toy me to get hungry. Defender22 continued.
Yes! Title told you the toy origin, and other than that Scootaloo part, everything he said was true. But I created Title, which makes me his daddy, and thus, whatever he said, I can take credit for, because that is what fathers do.
Defender22 blinked, considering his words.
Wait. I established that Tao Sunflower is his mother, so I just made it in canon in my story that me and an alicorn have a kid. Holy crap! That's twisted even for me!
Hey, what do you think, Defender? I'm reading this thing! He looked down, lips pursed.
Hope I don't owe any child support or alimony.
Derby blinked. You owe her all your money? How will you pay your rent? She let out a horrified gasp. How will you buy
muffins?
Defender asked. Pizza! Everypony stared at Derpy, who clouded her brow. What? I can like more than muffins. Yes, Reese's! Dinky proclaimed. Twilight spaked, going back to the Defender22's explanation. I only understood every third word you said, Twilight complained. She ate a bit of her eggs, considering all Defender22 had told her. Even if he is crazy, at least he is a great cook. So, are you telling me that none of us are real?
Heck no! Darier exclaimed. You are very real.
How can I be? You just said I was a cartoon character.
That doesn't make you any less real. In the hearts and minds of millions of fans, you exist, and that is all that matters. Look at it this way. More humans know your name than mine. They know what you look like, your life story. And there are maybe 1,000 people at most that know I exist. If anyone is less real at this table, it's me.
You're a bit crazy, aren't you? Defender22 smirked.
We're all crazy, Twilight. I'm just ahead of the curve.
I'm not crazy, Derby said, trying to balance 5 muffins on her head while Dinky cheered her on. Twilight had to accept the human's logic, as much as she didn't want to. So, as for the why are you all here? Defender22 tugged on his beard. Apparently a nervous habit.
Ah! And now we come to the meta part of this chapter.
The writer flashed a wide grin at his audience. Oh, sweet mother of Celestia and Luna.
Be glad. I originally wrote this entire thing as a dream that really wasn't nearly as funny. It was incredibly meta.
Yes, heaven forbid we get meta.
It was like Abed for Community had written it.
We're here because Mr. Defender invited us, Diggy said happily. He said we are popular with the fans, and he wanted his chapter to be like as many people ponies as possible.
And to make up for all the icky sex stuff that grossed out some of the readers, Derpy said, smiling a yucky face. Derpy frowned.
And I liked the sex stuff.
Defender22 leaned back in his chair, stretching out his lean 6'2" frame as he took control of the conversation.
You see, every chapter of this story has been a parody of different origins and ways to tell stories. I've done cloth fix and super ponies and mystical origins and OCs. This chapter is the author insert chapter and the human comes to Equestria chapter, where I blatantly add myself to the story and have a starring role. I think I'll also add a bit of Mary Sue here and make everyone love and respect me like I'm Jonathan from that one episode, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Hey, I haven't seen that episode, Defender. Calm down. Give me a time.
Mainly because I am still sad that some people didn't like the last few chapters, and I need cheering up.
He paused, taking out a notepad and wrote,
Note to self, Scootaloo as Buffy chapter.
If I read that, I am going to love you forever. Twilight was about to comfort the deranged man, but Spike chose that moment to walk into the kitchen, and the baby dragon, upon seeing the human, let out a gasp. You're Defender22! You're the one writing this fic! This is so cool! Can I have your autograph?
See what I mean?
Defender asked Twilight with a laugh, grabbing a quill and scroll and quickly signing an autograph.
I could also make him squeal. Want to see?
Maybe later, Twilight said, rolling her eyes at her assistant's antics. Defender22 quickly added a plot twist, where Spike decided to leave them alone and turn back to the unicorn. Okay, I'll admit that is handy. Any way I can learn to do that?
Sure, but it would only work in stories you wrote, not in the real world. Believe me, if I had godlike powers in my reality, I'd be worse than Discord.
Did you just admit you're an evil bringer of chaos?
Actually, I think of you as chaotic neutral, Derpy said.
Diggy looked at the audience.
Meta!
Can we get back to the point?
Right. Sorry. I'm rewriting this chapter during my lunch, and I let my mind wander. Now, then, the question of why I'm here. That is rather simple, too. I want to tell my own origin story about Scootaloo. Because what use is there being a self-inserted Mary Sue character if I can't have all the answers?
I guess none. And of course, this has nothing to do with you having a gigantic ego and wanting to be part of a popular story, does it?
Defender22 clapped. Nicely done, Twilight. Very good burn.
Thank you, Twilight said with a slight blush, as Derpy and Dinky applauded.
Now then, time to give the fans what they have been waiting for. The true origin of Scootaloo.
Several years ago, at My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Studio. Great table read, guys, Lauren Falks called out, waving to the actresses as they grabbed their coats. I'll see you at the recording in a few days. Securing her notebook and script, which was covered in scribbles and reference notes, Lauren made her way toward her office, only to pause when she saw Megan McCarthy, writer of the episode they had just got done reading, juggling several scripts, a cup of coffee, and a laptop case. Taking pity on her, Lauren hurried over and snatched the coffee before it spilled all over the crowd.
Thanks. No problem.
Lauren followed Megan into her office.
Listen, I wanted to talk to you about this episode.
Shoot, Lauren said, taking a seat.
I really think the Cutie Mark Crusaders are going to be a huge hit with the fans,
Megan said, with a grin, reaching over and grabbing a stress ball off her desk and tossing it in the air.
Wait a minute. I don't understand.
What is there to understand? These are the writers of your show, who created you, and all of the new characters.
I think my brain is trying to call its way out of its skull.
Yeah, that happens when I tell stories.
My brain is
always doing that.
Good for you, Derpy.
I want to go further with them, Lauren. Make them really meaningful characters. I have some great ideas for episodes involving them and the main cast.
Megan thumped through her notes.
Okay, we've already done an Apple Bloom story, but
Cindy and I came up with this great idea for an episode involving Sleepbelt and Rarity fighting over their different views, and Applejack's helping them out. Lauren nodded her head in agreement. That sounds like a great idea. I don't know if we could get it into this season, but we'll start to make it goes into season 2. Great! Megan said with a grin. Now, I had this idea for an episode involving Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo. It involves them going on a camping trip and Scootaloo worrying about her fears and Rainbow Dash covering her. I also had this great idea for a Crystal Empire and the girls going into high school in an alternate universe, plus having to fight sirens. Oh, and let's not forget I had this great idea for involving when after Twilight becomes a princess, having to deal with this huge evil tree. And of course, then at the season finale for season 4, yes, I had this great idea of Twilight facing down Tyrak. You have some crazy ideas. I don't know if Hasbro will go for it, but I also think we should make them half-sisters, and they haven't really known each other, but now Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo aren't sisters. Lauren said simply. Oh, well, I just assumed since the other two were sisters. Lauren merely shook her head, and Megan shrugged. Okay, no big deal. I suppose I can modify their bits. Oh! I have the perfect idea. What if Scootaloo's parents are overprotective and don't want her to hang out with the Crusaders? Scootaloo doesn't have parents. Though, Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo finding out that they are half-sisters would work really, really awesome for an episode, but that's just me. Megan was flabbergasted. Wow, you want to go the orphan route? That's edgy! Lauren stood up and walked over to the window, hands clasped behind her back. She isn't an orphan either, Megan. Then, what is she? The puzzled writer asked. Nothing. Scootaloo is nothing. She has no backstory and never will. She is merely a character designed to move the plot along. Megan went flabbergasted to floored. Lauren, you can't be serious! Those 4chan boards will explode if we do something like that! The fans have been naming every character and giving them a backstory. For God's sake, they made that one brown pony the doctor, and they developed an entire backstory for Derpy that is more complex than anything we've come up for Twilight Sparkle. Hey! We have to give them some kind of backstory for Scootaloo. It would be evil not to! Evil? Lauren turned, a wicked gleam filling her eyes. I know. She raised her mouth to her hand, extending her pinky and placing it to the corner of her lips. Things I've never expected to do during this live read. Laughed evilly as Lauren Faust. She threw her head back and chortled an evil glee at the thought of driving her fans insane. Now then, come, mini-me! A Lauren Faust that was 1/8 of the size of the original hurried for the closet, joining Lauren and laughing.
And that is how Equestria was made. Defender22 said, God, I've waited a long time to say that.
Twilight stared at Defender22, her eyes slurring about like Pinky's whenever she did the Evil Sakura song. Defender22 smirked.
Well, I need to be off. You have a busy day ahead of you. Wait until you hear Cheerilee's theory on Scootaloo. The fans have been bugging me for it for so long.
He stood up, Dinky and Derpy joining him. Twilight snapped out of her insanity. Wait, why would I need to hear Cheerilee's story? You just told me Scootaloo's origin. Defender22 sheepishly smiled.
Well, about that. What is real in my universe is not what is real in your universe.
So, this was just a big waste of time?
You got breakfast out of it. What more do you want?
Defender22 complained as he made his way to the door. More muffins? More lines? Dinky added to Derpy's question. No wonder you don't have a TV Tropes page yet, Twilight shouted. And I hope people give you bad reviews! Defender began to sniff.
You might be smart, Twilight, but you aren't good at sparing people's feelings!
The writer began to cry, Derpy and Dinky covering him. It's okay. I'm sure you'll get a page soon enough, Derpy said soothingly, Dinky jumping onto his shoulder and patting him on the head as the three left the library. Twilight merely rolled her eyes, returning to breakfast. That was mean, Twilight. Piggy said, jumping out of the fence. Piggy! What are you doing here? Twilight shouted in shock.
I got a twitchy twitch that some pony was breaking the fourth wall, and I wanted to stop them.
Huh?
The fourth wall. Some pony was breaking it. I hate it when ponies break the fourth wall.
Seriously?
Of course! It's cheap, it's stupid, and any pony that thinks otherwise should be ashamed.
Piggy turned to the audience.
Do you hear me? I really hate it when ponies break the fourth